Hey there, you sock-fighting seed sovereigns. It's Stevie here from Ediculture. The moon is moving through Sagittarius right now, and it's dark moon, and the moon is also conjunct with Mars. And we've got this beautiful, clear, crisp day, and there's frost on the ground. And what I'm going to focus on today is edible green manures or edible ground covers. And although this doesn't look like much, there's some really valuable, precious crops here. So I'm just going to go straight in here and point out some of these very, very important crops. This one here, surviving down to about -10 perhaps, is rocket. It's called Esme rocket. It's the annual rocket. This little patch here where I'm focusing on right now, we had beans, climbing French beans, growing up until about mid-October. They were removed, and then this patch was sown in lines with different types of salads. Now I could have done it as like a broadcast, but instead I decided to do individual types of salads in lines, and they're generally keeping the ground occupied. So as I say, this is rocket. Not much to it on it now, but it was sown late. If I'd wanted it to be bigger, I could have sown it in, say, September or August. This next little one, very important plant, called land cress. Again, it'll put on a load of growth. Can go down to probably even colder temperatures than the rocket. Again, another type of cress. This one's Greek cress. They're all sown on the same day in October. This one actually is probably one of the hardiest. You can see how it's grown more than, say, the land cress or the rocket. It's a very, very useful winter salad. You just pick these top leaves, and as I say, it probably got down to about -5 last night, so easily getting through there. Another king of the winter salad garden is the giant red mustard, and this one is super useful. Oh, by the way, I don't buy any of these seeds. We just save them from year to year. They're very easy to save seeds from. Another type of mustard, purple frills or golden frills. Basically all the mustards are generally winter hardy. And another one which is a bit less common, it's not coming through as strong. This is chervil, but when the spring comes, it'll grow through really strongly. And basically what we've got here is just post getting your beans out, just getting something in to keep the ground covered as soon as possible, you know, with or without added compost or soil improvement. Just keep the ground covered for the winter. That's the principle. We're going to go and check out a few other spaces now. So this crop here, it's in the mustard family, slightly different. It's called Sessantiana, and again, very fast growing. We've been picking quite a lot of this, and we didn't put this in probably until about October, but as you can see from the difference between outside and inside, in the tunnel things grow a lot faster. Even in December you'll get growth on the crops. Another useful crop to consider as a salad, as a ground cover for especially indoors, is the Claytonia or miner's lettuce or winter purslane. That's a really useful one. These lettuces were sown too late and planted too late. They'll grow on in the spring and we'll get some pickings off them, but as you can see, they didn't really get to their full potential. But that was because we needed to get the seeds probably sown in September rather than October. And again, the lettuces are one of the ones which aren't so valuable. I mean, they're good, but if you want to guarantee a crop through the winter, even in a tunnel, the lettuces can get killed off by the frosts. Okay, in another tunnel space here. So what I showed you with the giant red mustard outside earlier in the video, these are direct transplants. So sowing them in a seed bed outside in October, and then when it gets to November, lifting them and transplanting them into a tunnel. We had chilies growing in this tunnel up until November, and we wanted to get the full length of their ripening, so we took them out, and then rather than sowing seeds in here, we did all transplants. So most of the seeds that you see in here sorry, most of the plants that you see in here are all from direct transplants, so not messing around with modules or anything like that, just lifting plants straight out of a seed bed in the garden. You can see how much better they are growing in a tunnel than outside. Not to say that the outside ones aren't still valuable. And you can see these lettuces here. These ones were transplants from a direct sowing into another patch of ground. Again, not messing about with modules, but just going straight to lifting them by hand carefully and transplanting them immediately. And you can see we're basically keeping the soil occupied all winter. There's a load more of the Greek cress. So even in a semi-shady spot of the garden, we've still got edibles growing. Although people don't think of this as a leafy green, this is the field beans, and again really hardy. You can see the frost and light snow around it. These should go all the way through the winter quite easily, and we can eat the little shoots here, the tops. We usually generally don't start eating the shoots until April, sometime around then, but definitely a ground cover. And this one is considered also a green manure. It's a nitrogen fixer, very useful. Definitely get some field beans in. You could also do the same with broad beans. These are what's called green and snow mustards. That one obviously wasn't sown in October. It's huge now. But we've got lines of the purple frills, the Greek cress, more Greek cress, more land cress, giant red mustard, more giant red mustard. And I think what we'd put in here probably has died off because I can't see much. Probably it was lettuces or something. And then this one, another one that I haven't mentioned yet, this is called vivid choy, and it's a very, very hardy mustard type salad. It goes to flower very early in the spring, and it's a bit like pak choy, but a bit stronger flavoured and a bit more mustardy basically. And then here we've got some baby kales. You can even use kales to cover the ground. So you can see we've probably sown thousands of seeds into this bed because we were sowing so late. We didn't have the time to let the plants expand to their full capacity. But because we're saving our own seeds, it's of no extra cost to us to do that. Here's more of the green and snow mustard, probably the hardiest of all the mustards, and this one's actually flowering. Slightly different context here. This is growing in between rows of trees in the tree nursery. This is all rows of apple trees, and we've got kind of a ground cover, but one which we can pick from, which has been in all year. It wasn't an autumn sown. This was probably like late spring, early summer sown. This is ragged jack kale, followed by sesantiana, followed by vivid choy, followed by giant red mustard, and they're all surviving. They'll get through the winter. Here we've got a whole line of parsley that'll go right through the winter, and chard bolted, but again the ones that haven't bolted, which look pretty bedraggled right now, they will give a crop as soon as the weather warms up in April and May. Here's more of the chards. And again, all of these just saved, seeds saved by hand. Here in the main tunnel in the Coed Gardens we have rocket, and this rocket followed on from what was a melon crop. The melons were probably harvested in August, and this has been cropped quite a bit for salads already, and it'll just keep going all the way through until April, when it'll start to really want to go to flower. And just trying to get the ground covered as quickly as possible. We had chilies growing in here until December, and we took the last harvest of chilies probably around the 10th of December. And you think, what can we sow in December? So we've sowed the green and snow mustard, and in another month this should be completely green and covered. And again, just keep something in the ground, keep the roots in the ground. We could have put garlic in, or we could have put field beans in, but we didn't have them, so we just used the mustard. That's Greek cress that's starting to flower, actually. So that was sown probably in July. That's going to be taken out pretty soon. There's more rocket. Bits of coriander just surviving in the tunnel, but again, I wouldn't rely upon that one as a ground cover. More mustards, the type of pak choi coming up there. Some lettuces that are still pulling through. Another important one, which I haven't mentioned yet, is chicory. These chicories were planted quite late. This is the Paolo Rosso chicory. Again, they'll pull through probably indoors and outdoors, unless it gets really cold outdoors. But yeah, that's a biennial, so generally it won't go to seed within a year, it'll go to seed the following year. So here's a useful crop. This is radish. This was sown probably around the beginning of September to mid-September. It followed on from the potatoes, as did the broad beans. But the broad beans were sown in November, and so the early potatoes came out. They were replaced with green in snow mustard for about 2 or 3 months of worth of growth. Then that was dug in as a green manure, and then the broad beans followed that. And next to the radish is what looks like grass. It's Hungarian grazing rye, and that was probably sown in October after the main crop potatoes came out. You can see that a lot of plants are surviving both indoors and outdoors, and all of these plants that get through will give quite a large harvest come February indoors in the tunnels when the new growth starts to really kick in, and March, April, May outside when again the soil temperatures warm up. And all these crops are particularly useful for saving seeds from, because they give you food in the winter. I always say prepare for the winter and the summer will be easy. And also, most of these crops you'll find they don't tend to get eaten by slugs as well, and they're also very disease tolerant, especially if you grow them into the winter, when a lot of the more summer pests will just simply die off. So although these crops aren't what we'd strictly call green manure crops, except for things like the rye and the field beans, they are essentially doing the same function of keeping the ground covered. And for those of you who are working with very small spaces where you don't have a lot of room and you want to go more down a kind of low animal input system, I would definitely recommend growing edible green manures as opposed to non-edible green manures. And the non-edibles would be things like the clovers, although you can eat them a bit, they're not like going to give you a harvest, let's say, because if you've only got a small space, you really want to make the most of every little space that you've got to produce food. I'd also like to mention finally just about saving seeds from these. By about May, most of the overwintering salads in the tunnel, they will have all gone to seed, and so you can still get in your tomatoes or chilies or even cucumbers after your, say, lettuce and mustard seed crops come out of the tunnels. And you can also get in summer crops outside, following on from anything that you leave to go to seed outside. So again, those mustards, those kales, they'll all be seeding by June, maybe July, and then you can still have chance to get in, say, beetroot or carrots post the seeding of the overwintering greens. Some will come to seed earlier than others, and that will give you variation of different things that you can put in. In some cases you might be able to get in late potatoes even, so just have a play with it. It's always very good to have abundant seeds available for these kinds of green manures and ground covers, because they are expensive to buy, and you know, it's only a case of waiting and following through with the seed saving process that you have to do to get these things. So that would be my recommendation. I'll say goodbye for now. I'm wishing you a healthy garden with lots of abundant salads and edibles. Bye for now.